Well, good afternoon, Northside. I'm Alan here with the Word for Wednesday. This week we continued our series, Bittersweet, by looking at when we can see the goodness of God when life is hard to swallow. Now, this week we took a look at the stronghold of addiction and how Jesus said in John chapter 8 that all sin is slavery. And we just took a deep dive on addiction, and we started to talk about what it looks like to recognize that sin is slavery, to know the truth of that, and to start to restore the broken relationships that you have with God and with others. And I mentioned in my sermon that when you hear a word like recovery, you probably think of a person. I hope that you think of a person, because this is a people issue. And you might think of a name. And one of the names that I think of when it comes to my mind when I think of recovery is Bruce Beatles here, who's joined us today to speak from his perspective as a recovering alcoholic, and how the church and we can help those who are struggling through addiction. So Bruce, first I'll ask you just to give a little brief of how long have you been sober? What has your life been like? What was your life like before sobriety? And what was it that actually got you kind of on that road to recovery?
It's been, as of Monday, 3 days ago, it was 33 and a half years.
Wow.
Since I left the alcohol and the drugs behind. And it's been an adventure, nonstop. First, I want to say thank you for having me here. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. Obviously, addiction is something near and dear to my heart. I will be honest, when I heard the sermon was about addiction, my filters turn on. I tend to be a little over-analytical, a little over-critical of anybody talking about addiction, because so often, people can get a little off. You nailed it. You nailed it. And I think the thing that I appreciated most was that you didn't just talk about alcohol, or you didn't just talk about drugs, but you talked about all of the different addictions that are pulled into that, whether it's gambling, whether it's overeating, whether it's social media. I think it's probably the hottest one, these days. Pornography, alcohol, drugs, obviously. All of those things, all of those addictions, they're all the same. They're all ways for Satan to pull us away from that relationship with God. And so I really appreciated that part.
Yeah. So 33 years. That's 33 and a half. Yeah.
33 and a half,
You gotta count
officially.
those
November
halves,
18th
for sure.
will be 34.
Absolutely. Very cool. That's amazing. So I know you're a church guy. That's how we've met, through ministries and through churches or whatever. And so I'll ask you now, how would you say that the church and or Christians overall kind of did, I don't know if you could give a grade or that sort of stuff, in supporting and helping you on your road to recovery?
It's interesting. God put a lot of people in my life. There were people who, without really even knowing, they were just there supporting me, encouraged me. I grew up in the church, so people within the church knew I had issues. I don't know that there was anything that, that person stepped out because of my addiction, or they wanted to help me with my recovery, but it was the being there. It was the caring about me. It was the calling me. It was the helping me with some of the legal issues that I had wound up in. It was helping me in general in life. It was loving me. Because one of the challenges of addiction was I was losing what my mind saw as the most important part of my life. That addiction was my identity. Alcohol was my best friend. And so in losing that, when people came alongside and cared about me and loved me and showed me grace, that made all the difference.
On the flip side of the coin, can you think of ways that Christians and or the church were not very helpful in your road to recovery? Can you think of those ways?
Fortunately for me, I didn't encounter much of that. But I've worked with a lot of people going through recovery. And the judgment, the lack of grace, those are the things where I've brought people early in recovery into church, because their spiritual life is such a critical element there. and people see them come in and they're like, they've got piercings, they've got tattoos, they've got, they see things that they're just not comfortable with. That's not the type of person that we have at church. Church is for clean, and those are the times that I think I saw the most damage done. But overall, especially here at Northside, we've got such a great group of people here. They're used to they're used to my type.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about on Sunday was that oftentimes we're not willing to go through the bumps and the curves that with an addict on the road to recovery, and we often will shut them out or shun them, leaving them isolated, which is like the worst thing that you could do to help an addict, is to push them away by themselves, which will lead them really right back to their addiction. So I would ask, could you offer the church, our church, some encouragement, maybe even some advice on approaching someone who has an addiction problem, whether they know it or not? You got the old school like intervention way, that type of thing. Is there a more healthy way maybe to respond, or how to respond to someone who's even reaching out for help?
Right. I think there are probably three important things when we're talking about reaching out to somebody who is going through a struggle. Number one, it's a spiritual battle. It's not just they do this thing. It is a spiritual battle for their soul. It is Satan doing what he can. He is attacking the part of them where they're most vulnerable. And we need to enter that with prayer. We need to be praying for that person, praying about how can God use me in their life. And the second thing is, this isn't your battle. This is God's battle. You're an instrument for God. God is going to use you. He has equipped you with everything that you need to do His work. You just need to be willing to let Him work through you. So be an instrument for Christ. And the third one is, it's probably not going to feel good. What you're doing is going to come with challenges. What you're doing is going to be saying things, hard, uncomfortable truths. Sometimes that feels cruel. Sometimes, because what we can't do is accept it and just be their friend through it, we have to be honest. We have to be sometimes confrontational and say, I am here for you. I am not willing to accept this.
Yeah.
This is not okay, but I'm here to walk through the battle with you.
Yeah.
So, those three things.
Yeah. That grace and truth tension that we've talked about so many times. So great. Okay, so finally, and I'm just going to ask you to just speak from the heart here. We've had some scripted stuff, but here we go. Finally, what would you say to someone who is in your shoes? 33 and a half years ago, someone who is addicted, enslaved, and maybe even seeking, or maybe not seeking, but someone who needs to be set free from this slavery of sin. What would you say to someone who was in your shoes 33 and a half years ago?
There is hope. There's freedom. What is waiting for you on the other side is so much bigger than what you're going through. Life in recovery has been more adventurous, more exciting, more fun. There is grace. There is freedom, like I said. I know that sometimes when we're caught in the middle of that situation, we feel like it's me against the world. Nobody really understands. I was counseling a young lady several years ago. She dealt with eating disorders, and she dealt with cutting. And around that same time, there was a new online ministry called XXXchurch.com. Their whole focus was reaching out to the porn industry, both people in the porn industry and people that were addicted to pornography. And as I was exploring their website, they had one page that was called their prayer wall. And people could go out there and just post their prayers. And as I was reading through that, there was one prayer out there that was 3 paragraphs. And in the first paragraph, he started talking about the struggle. The middle paragraph, he talked specifically about pornography. And then in the third paragraph, he went back to talking about just how challenging and difficult it was. I took that, I cut out the middle paragraph. I printed it out, just the first and third paragraphs. I shared it with this girl that I'd been working with. She looked at me and she said, "You get me. You understand me." She felt so suddenly understood, and there was hope because somebody actually understood what she was going through. And I said, "I didn't write that." And I showed her the middle paragraph. That didn't make sense because that first and third paragraph, that was her struggles, that was her challenges, that was her mindset. It was everything that she was going through, but porn was not her thing. Satan takes whatever our weakest point is, and he hooks it. He hooks us and he pulls us in. And our brains literally rewire. That part of our brain that connects with God, that is that God spot, as they call it, that it interacts with the Holy Spirit and with God. It takes that and it diverts it. Whatever you're dealing with, you are not alone. I've been through it. Hundreds of people at this church have been through it. Have we done exactly what you've done? No. Have we experienced exactly what you've experienced? No. But we've all struggled and we've all dealt with what Satan has done in our lives. And there's freedom. There's hope. There's grace. You can be free.
Amen. Yeah. That's first point of the sermon this week was, to know the freeing truth, to understand the truth, to understand the lies that you've been told. If you've told yourself in addiction that you're alone, that first lie, I'm alone in this. That's a lie straight from the devil. We don't just walk around with name tags on that say this is my addiction, but right there under the surface, there are hundreds, as you said, that have struggled, and hundreds who have found recovery and freedom in Jesus. And so, Bruce, I want to thank you for joining us for the Word for Wednesday, but I also want to make sure that everyone knows that this week we started a Celebrate Recovery course. It was planned in advance by someone else who was not me writing the sermon, and God just said, here, this would be a great tool to start the day after we talk about addiction. But you can find out more about that, whether you want to help those who are going through addiction, because if you want to help, you actually have to go through the 12 steps as well yourself, or if you need help and you're searching for truth in your addiction, please reach out. The easiest way to do that is just text the word recovery. Text the word recovery to 417-233-1200. 417-233-1200. Text the word recovery and you will get connected right with the link that you can put in just a little bit of information about yourself. Someone will reach out to you about our Celebrate Recovery that started this week by the grace of God. So thanks for joining us for our Word for Wednesday. Looking forward to seeing all of you again on Sunday online at 10:15 as we stream live from YouTube Live and Facebook Live. So God bless you guys. See ya.